series called Playlist. And the idea of this is that sometimes we have good days, but sometimes we have bad days, right? And the idea of our series is that sometimes when we have good days, sometimes we have bad days, but what we do sometimes is we have a playlist that's based on the kind of mood that we're in. Anybody with me? All right, so let's back this up a little bit because there's some people my age in the room and some a little bit older, but a lot that are younger. So I'm going to back it up to my age. I made 8 tracks. So I made my dad had an 8-track in his car, so I made the 8-track generation, but just barely. Right? Most of us was cassettes. You guys started out with cassettes? Raise your hand if you're cassette people in here, all right? Started out with the cassettes, and here's what I would do is I'd find a song on the radio that I would like, and then I got that little silver radio, right? You play it, and you just got to get that dial just right to get the song that you want, and then you put the tape in, and as soon as it goes, you got to press that record button, right? That's how we did it. That's how we made playlists back in the day, right? And so you get that, and then, man, you know that girl, right? And so you make that just that right mixtape, and you're like, oh, this is going to be it, right? Got just the right mixtape. And then we moved up a little bit because we had CDs after a while, and we thought we were the best in the world. And it was the only time in the history of civilization that Kmart was cool. You guys remember they used to have the little section right up at the front? So your parents are checking out, and right in front of it was the CD section at Kmart, and you can press the buttons and listen to the different CDs. Oh, that was like the future has arrived, right? It was amazing. And then there was always that one kid, and he had the portable CD player, and the kid with the portable CD player, that kid had it together. That kid knew what he was doing, and what he would do is he would sit on the bus, but he would sit on the outside seat on the bus, put his headphones in, and have the CD player. And it didn't matter if the other seat was the only one available on the bus. You don't bother that kid. You know, because he was a cool kid that had the headphones on. Well, can't you just sit there, James? He's got headphones on. I can't interrupt him. That was the way we thought back then, right? And so then at some point, they came out with this thing called the iPod, right? But you guys probably remember the iPod didn't start out the way that it did, right? It started out as an iPod Shuffle. So you couldn't even make your own playlist. It was just a little small shuffle. You'd have to go and connect it to MP3s on your computer, and then eventually you would get to that spot where it would all come together. And then everything changed, and everything was beautiful because then we all had iPods and iPhones and Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon Music, and now we get to curate our own lives musically. Isn't it great? Isn't it great that now, after all of that, now we get to come to the point where we make our own music and we can make our own playlist. So we actually got some examples today because I don't know. Jacob's back here. Let's give a round of applause to Jacob, everybody, because he does a great job with our music every day. Now, what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about how we have different playlists for our different moods, right? So I went online this week, and I said, hey, tell me what song you sing for a good mood, right? And some of you guys came back with like Maverick City, some David Crowder, all of that. That was great. But if you guys saw this past Tuesday, I believe it was, we celebrated our 1-month anniversary as a church. That's exciting, right? Yes. And in that time, we've had all sorts of awesome things happen, right? We had our first baptisms last week, which was really exciting, huh? It was really great. And then we even had our first growth track. Growth track, yeah, all right, round of applause for growth track. Awesome. And if you guys don't know, growth track is amazing because my wife leads it. So number one, you just need to know that right off the bat, right? She does an awesome job. Yeah, Heather! Round of applause for Heather. But it's also a great place where you can come in and you can learn about the church and you can ask questions about the church. But also, what's really cool is we also teach you things about yourself, right? There's also stuff in there about your spiritual gifts, about your personality, different things that's actually going to help you on Monday when you go to work. So if you haven't signed up for Growth Track, I'm going to put a little commercial in there. Make sure you see me or Heather because next week is our next Growth Track. And so what we decided to do this week was that we decided to go online and we were going to celebrate, right? And so we were in a good mood. And so I thought, what song do we play when we're in a good mood? And here's what we came up with. Huh? Yeah, you guys with me? Nobody jamming with me? Come on, you guys know this song, right? Everybody with me? You got to jam with me on this one. Oh, now you got it. Tom wants the disco back there. I see you. There it is. Okay, you guys are with me. You hear it? Hang on, it's coming. What kind of musical interlude is here? Come on, there's got to be some words here at some point, right? It's there. Maybe we just got the music-only version here. It's there. All right, it's coming. There it is. This is what we do, right? Celebrate good times. Come on. Now we got it. We got that thing working. All right, that's good. That's good. We can cut that. We can cut that because that's not what we're talking about today. It's nice to have a happy playlist. It's nice to have a celebrate good times playlist. It's nice to have that. But listen, we don't all live in that world, all right? We don't all get to celebrate every week something good that's happening. So some of you guys, you might be like, all right, so I'm in a bad mood. Things are just not going right. So some of you guys just go straight to Taylor Swift. You guys would... I caught somebody. I knew it. Yeah, some of you guys go straight to Taylor Swift or maybe just a certain few Carrie Underwood songs, right? You got some real bad, like, I'm not listening to Kool and the Gang when I'm in a bad mood. I'm going to put on some T-Swizzle. I'm going to see what happens because I'm in a bad mood and she always gets broken up with, so I know her songs are going to resonate with me because she's always in a bad mood. But there's this one guy, and this is the last song we're going to play. This is the one guy, and he made a whole career out of people being in a bad mood. One-hit wonder, never heard of him again or before. But there was one particular song that kind of always sticks out to me when I think about a bad mood playlist. Let's see if we can get that. You guys with me? You guys are with me, right? It's going to kick in. Don't worry. You'll know what it is. You know this, right? You guys know this? You guys know this one. Luca, you guys know this one right here. You ready? Here we go. It's about to happen. Come on, you can sing it. Sing a sad song just to turn it around. Oh, I'm mic'd up on YouTube. I can't sing because YouTubers will hear me. Man, that just feels right there, right? I got one more, almost there. Here it is, about to finish right here. Yeah, that's it. Let's give a round of applause for Jacob, everybody, for being our DJ this morning. Because I believe that's where we're at this morning. Because the reason I bring all of this up is because we're going to be digging into the book of Psalms. And if you ask me, I believe the book of Psalms reads like a playlist for our Christian life. I believe that most of the Psalms, a lot of the Psalms are written by a guy named David. Right? There's some other Psalms in there written. There's 2 Psalms in there written by Ethan, my son's name back there. And there's a few other people. But the predominant ones that we know about are written by a guy named David. And the thing about David is that when he was in a bad mood, you knew it. He never hid. He was never quiet about it. He never was reserved. You always knew exactly what he was thinking. So when you read the scripture, specifically the book of Psalms, I believe it reads like a playlist to our Christian life. And so the one that we're going to read today, this is your bad day playlist. This is your bad day psalm. This is the Daniel Powder of the book of Psalms that we're going to read right now, right? So that's what we're going to get to. So if you got your Bibles, if you're looking for the book of Psalms, put your finger right in the middle, and 9 times out of 10, you're going to get there. This was one of those 1 times out of 10. I got to Isaiah. But get to the book of Psalms right in the middle of your Bible, and then you're going to find Psalm chapter 13. And this is going to be our bad day playlist. This is the Daniel Powder chapter of the Bible right here. When you're having a bad day, David was having a bad day when he wrote this. So let's all read this together. Psalm chapter 13. I'm going to try to read it slow for everybody. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord, my God. Light up my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest my enemy say, I have prevailed over him. Lest my foes rejoice because I am shaken. But I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. Now, if you read Psalm chapter 13, Psalm chapter 13 reads as though this is a guy that's having a bad day. This is the bad day psalm of the Bible. And when it starts out, he's just complaining to God. Now, you might think that's not something that you should do. You shouldn't complain to God. But Psalm 102 says, cast your complaints to God. He's cool. He's okay with it. He understands. In fact, he knows already what you're complaining about before you complain about it. So we get it, right? It's okay. But when you read the beginning of the Psalm chapter 13, it doesn't sound just like a guy that's complaining. It sounds, quite frankly, like he's being a bit dramatic. Just to be honest. He seems a little bit irrational. I have a 9-year-old daughter. She's not in here right now, right? Listen, sometimes I understand irrational now, right? Like, this is the way I read Psalms, the very beginning of Psalm chapter 13. He's like, oh God, why are you so far away from me? I'm going to die because you're so far away from me. Which reminds me of somebody that's at the mall that's all like, oh, buy me this toy, Daddy, or I'm going to die, right? This is the way it reads right here at the beginning of Psalm chapter 13. It seems like he's being a bit dramatic. And the thing about it is the thing that he's complaining about, catch this irony. The thing that he's complaining about to start this psalm is that he feels like God is far away from him. Well, who is he complaining to about God being far away from him? God. Yes, that's exactly right. You catch the irony there? He's talking to the guy and complaining about the fact that he felt so far away from him. Sometimes we feel that way, don't we? Sometimes it feels as though God's far away from us. Listen, we know he's not. We know he's not, but sometimes our irrational side takes over. And doesn't it just feel as though God's far away from us sometimes? Do you guys ever have those moments where it just feels like, man, you're just all alone on an island? Sometimes you have these moments where you just feel as though God doesn't even know your name anymore. I'll let you know, it's not true. God knows your name. He's always there. And he's always got your back. And that's what we're going to keep going through here today, because he starts out by complaining, and he starts out with this irrational thought, and he starts out with all this stuff. But we can understand. We've kind of been there, right? Even though God wasn't far away, it kind of felt like he was. And so what happens a lot of times is that we have these ideas that basically we're all split up into optimists and pessimists, right? We all agree with that. And so we all have ups and downs in life, but the optimists are all like, man, everything's great. Right? Everything's great. And they remember the highs. The pessimists are all like, oh, everything's so bad. And they remember the lows. Well, we all have ups and downs. We all have this ebb and flow of our life. We all have this different playlist that we live out. And so if you listen to David and you listen to his psalm, you might think to yourself, all right, yeah, but what kind of background does David have? Can David really relate to me in my situation? Does David really understand the ups and downs of life? And I would say absolutely he does. Let me give you a little background on David over here. Marco doesn't know. Marco, I'm going to fill you in right here, all right? Here's who David was. David started out as a shepherd. I don't know much about shepherd. I don't know much about sheep. I don't know much about it. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound like a fun job. It doesn't sound like anything that I want to do, but this was his job. He was a shepherd. He was watching the sheep, hanging out with the animals. This was his job. But it wasn't just that, because we had this whole Cinderella moment in the Bible where they were trying to find the next king, and somebody went into Jesse's house and said, can I see all your sons so I can figure out if one of them are the next king? They didn't even call David in, right? In true Cinderella fashion, they just left the dude out there with the sheep. So this is the way it all starts. This is the way the story of David starts, is he's the forgotten shepherd out in the middle of the woods. And then somebody comes to him and says, no, wait a minute, that's the guy right there. That's the next king. And so he goes. You see these highs and these lows. He's not only a shepherd, but he's a completely forgotten, disregarded shepherd. And now somebody tells him he's going to be the king. There's a problem. Problem is there already was a king. And he didn't like the fact that somebody said that some other dude was going to be king. So he wanted to kill David. So now we have this thing where David starts out as a forgotten shepherd. He's told that he's going to be king, and now he's a fugitive. Now he's a fugitive from the law. Now he's a fugitive in life. He's living in caves. He's drinking whatever he can. He goes to these highs and lows in his life. He goes from being a shepherd to telling he's going to be a king to being a fugitive, all before he gets to become king. He understands the highs and lows. And then you might know the story of David and how he beat this giant named Goliath, and he took his slingshot, and the rock went right in the dude's head. He fell down, and every little kid in Vacation Bible School is all like, yay! But they don't tell the next part, which he chops his head off and carries it around like a lantern. We don't even tell that part. But in that's the exact story, David and Goliath, and he beat David and Goliath. And so sometimes our ups and downs in life, sometimes there are things that happen, but other times there are things that we bring on ourselves. Sometimes circumstances are our lows, and sometimes our lows are self-inflicted. You see, the same guy that beat the giant, the same guy that was told he was going to be the king, he finally became king. And then he saw a woman that he liked, who happened to be married, and he happened to not care. And so now these lows came into his life. And these lows came into his life. He decided that he was going to put this woman's husband on the front line, and he essentially killed him. See the highs and lows? This guy's a shepherd, now he's a king, now he's a fugitive, and now he's a king again, and he uses this power that he's got to do harm to other people. Sometimes the lows in our life, they're because of circumstances, but sometimes our lows are self-inflicted, and so he understands the highs and lows. Now, some of you guys in here, you might be like, well, all right, yeah, that's fine. There's highs and lows. Some are circumstantial, some are self-inflicted. I get that, but have you met my family? All right, now it's a whole different conversation, right? All right, but have you met the in-laws, right? Have you met sisters, right? Have you met the people that I know, right? Have you met, you just don't understand. Like, my Thanksgiving dinner is half Fox News, half CNN. There is no mashed potatoes is left in the bowl because they're on somebody's forehead by the end of the day, right? You don't understand my family. Like, there's no way to be sane in my family. David understood that. David understood it so much so, the Bible says that David had 19 sons. Think about that for a minute. 19 sons. The Bible doesn't talk about the daughters, which means he had a lot of kids. He had 19 sons, a lot of daughters. We don't know how many, but unfortunately, we know one daughter's name. Her name was Tamar. And I'm going to try to figure out the G-rated version of what I'm about to say, so I don't teach any kids new words today. Tamar had a brother named Amnon. Amnon and Tamar were brothers and sisters. They were siblings. Amnon did the unthinkable with his sister. Amnon and Tamar, brother and sister. Everybody's following me, right? David understood chaos in the family because he had another son named Absalom. Absalom found out what Amnon did and didn't like it very much. Who would? So he killed his brother. Absalom went and killed Amnon because of what he did to his sister Tamar. You don't think David understands family drama? And you might look at the story and be like, well, Absalom, he's kind of the good guy here, right? Like, he killed the guy, but like, there was ever a reason, right? So some people are all like, yeah, let's give Absalom a break. Problem is, we read the rest of Absalom's story. Absalom wanted to be king. But David was already the king. So David goes in the exact same cycle again in his life because his own son is now trying to be king and is trying to murder his own father. David decides he's not going to kill his own son. Instead, he's going to go back to what he's already been in his life. And he started as a shepherd, was told he was going to be the king, became a fugitive, became a king, and now he's a fugitive again. But this time he's running from his own son who wants to kill him. David, the Bible describes him as a man after God's own heart, even after all the things that I described to you today. David says, let's not kill Absalom. That's still my son. I still love my son. Don't kill my son. And in one of the weirdest parts of the whole Bible, there's a lot of weird parts, but one of the weird parts of the whole Bible, Absalom didn't die because he was murdered. He was riding a mule and he got his hair stuck in a tree and died. So now David goes from being a shepherd to being a king, to being a fugitive, to being a king, to being a fugitive, to being a king again, but a king that just lost his son. He understands the highs and lows. He understands the family drama. He understands this, and that's why I believe the book of Psalms, specifically the ones that he writes, it can really hit us because he understands these different things that we're going through. And we don't know what part of all the lows that I just described to you that he wrote Psalm 13, but we know that it could have been in any one of those lows. It could have been when a king was chasing him just because some other guy told him that he was going to be king. It could be after he had somebody's husband murdered just because he did something and was trying to cover his tracks. It could be when his own son was trying to kill him just because he wanted to be king. It could have been in any of these lows in his life that he had that he wrote Psalm chapter 13. And when he wrote Psalm chapter 13, he starts out with this big question. And this big, humongous, giant question that he asks is found in 2 words. And those 2 words are this: how long? How long, God, am I going to have to go through this? How long, God, are bad things going to have to happen to me? This is what he's complaining to God about. God, you feel so far away. God, how long am I going to have to live this life? How long are these ups and downs going to keep happening? And I don't know about you guys. I don't know where you're at, but maybe you've asked this question before. Maybe you've said, God, how long? My financial issues just aren't the best. How long until it gets better? And my kids, they're just, ay, ay, ay. All I can say is, ay, ay, ay. God, when is this going to get better? God, I have this boss. God, do you know who my boss is? Have you heard my boss? Oh my gosh, it's been 9.5 years now. Come on, God, how long? How long? And some of you guys are like, I'm training somebody at work, and I'm like, how long am I going to have to do this? How long? And if you've never asked that question before, I think at some point we all ask it. We all ask it at some point, and the answer is always the same. Not very long. Not very long. It gets better. It always gets better. We all know that. You know why? Because God's on our side. It's going to get better. Finances will look up. Kids will look better. Things will get better. It's the way it is. It's life. Life is like the iron gwazi, man. Just ups and downs, right? When you're down, the only thing you can bet on is that eventually it's going to be back up again. You know it. So when you say how long, the answer is not very long. All right, but what if it is? What if it's my whole life? What if my whole life is just one long down? Yeah. There's a life on the other side, though. There's a life on the other side, and I'm telling you, that life is filled with all highs. And that life, oh man, I tell you what, in that life, there's no hatred, there's no mean bosses, there's no cancer, there's no racism, there's no hatred, there's no wars. That life, it's always up. So this is how we know that no matter what we go through in life, we can hang on. We can do it. We can get through it. Because when we ask this question, how long, the answer is basically not very long. Just hang on. Hang on a little bit longer. Hang on a little bit longer. And I do believe that God is a God of breakthrough. And I believe at some point in your life that breakthrough is going to come. And if you're living a life of downs, listen, God's going to bring you back up. And I believe the fact that you're even sitting in this room right now just means that you're on the right track. You're on the right track. So now he goes and he has this question, this big question, how long? And then he has this big request. And this big request says this. It says, look at me. Look at me. Here's the big request. Look at me. He says it like this. Hey, God, you feel so far away. Hey, God, how long am I going to have to go through this? Hey, God, look at me. And I don't know if you've ever felt like that before. You ever felt as though God just doesn't see you? Maybe I'm resonating. Maybe I'm hitting with somebody today. I've been there. I've been there before. I feel like there's sometimes that God just doesn't see me. Trust me, He does. He sees you. Let me put it to you like this. Sometimes, did anybody go to the fair this year? I go to the fair this year? Yeah. So you go to the fair, and I took my daughter to the fair. I like to take her there like right when it opens, right? Less crazy people right when it opens, okay? And then there's this idea. So it's just her and I went to the fair, and then there's just, there's like hundreds of people all around you. And you're just fine. You can live your life. You can do okay. And you do the things you want to do. But then, like when the sun's about to go down and people get off work, oh my gosh, that place is insane. I'm like, I'm out of here. I don't want to be here anymore. Because here's the thing that I'm thinking. It's just me and my daughter. And now we're standing next to each other, and now there's a flood of people coming in. A flood of people coming in because they're just getting off work, and we've been here all day, but they're just coming in. And so now I feel like I'm going to be there. I don't know if anybody else has this fear, but I feel like I'm going to be there sitting next to my daughter, and then all of a sudden she's going to be taken away in a crowd, and I'm going to be like, Kate! And she won't be able to hear me, and she won't be able to see me because there's too many people in the way. We can do better. We can do better. Hey, all of you guys right here, come up here. Come up stage. We can do better. We can do better. Come on. We're going to illustrate this today. This is going to hit. Come on, faster. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I can't do that. I'm not even going to lie. I can't do that. I can't do that at all. All right, so Rocco, you're going to be God, okay? And inflate his ego even more. All right, so you guys, if you're not God, get off the stage, okay? All right, so Rocco, come right up here, okay? So I'm talking to Rocco. I don't even need the microphone. Hey, Rocco.
Hey.
What's up, bro?
Nothing much.
How's it going?
Pretty good. How about you?
Hey, can you see me?
Yeah.
You can see me, right? And you can hear me. You know why? Because we're right here next to each other, right? Right? Go down there. Oh, that's good. Hey, Rocco. Hey. We're good, right? You can hear me? You can see me. You can see me, right? All right. Come on, guys. Get in the way. All right, let's line up. Why don't you line up? Give me a good line right here. How about some jumping jacks? You going to do some jumping jacks? Oh, nice. Nice jumping jacks. Very good. How about some cheering? You guys get some cheering? Yeah. Yeah, right here. Hey, Rocco. Hey, Rocco. Hey, Rocco. Hey, Rocco. Hey, Rocco. Can you hear me? Hey, Rocco. Can you see me? Hey, Rocco. Hey, Rocco. Hey, Rocco. Rocco. You see, this is what we do in our life. This is what we do in our life so many times. Nobody move. Nobody move. Because what happens is when we're right here and we're right next to God, we're all like, oh my gosh, I'm so in tune. I feel like God hears everything I'm saying. I feel like God can see me. And then all of a sudden, God's all the way over there or all the way over here. Now listen, I should have done this wrong. I should have moved and not him because God's not moving. But then all this stuff comes in the way. But you know who put all this stuff in the way? I did. I told these people to get here. I told them to do jumping jacks. I told them to be loud. Who is it that's getting in the way of God seeing you? It's you. God doesn't move. He's in the exact same spot. And I think what happens so many times is that we have distractions that we put in the way. We have other things that we put in the way. We have all sorts of noises that we put in the way. We have other people that we put in the way. And now we can finally get to see God. And I think the reason that we don't think God sees us, we don't think God hears us, is because we put too many things in between us and God. I thought they were going to clap. You ever just pause for dramatic effect and there was just no effect? It just kind of just stops right there? No, it's good.
Has a lot of experience with that.
Marco does have a lot of experience. Yes, yes, yes. You guys can have a seat. Every round of applause to these guys. Hey, there's an old story, and some of you guys have heard me tell this story before, but not everybody has, so I'm going to tell it to you again. There's an old story about this couple, and when they first start dating, the dude's got a pickup truck, right? But one of those pickup trucks that has like the one seat in the front, you know, so not the bucket seats, but the one seat in the front. And then he starts dating this girl, right? And you guys know what happens when you got that one seat and you start dating that girl, right? The girl, she comes right over here, right? So this is the girl. As you're driving a car, your girl's all right here, right? So you're driving that truck, and then all of a sudden you're driving around. You got your girlfriend right there. She's right there on your arm, and everything's great. Everything's happy. They get married. Everybody's really cool. They have kids. Kids grow up. Kids go off to college. Really good truck. Same truck. Still there. Definitely wasn't a Ford. So now he's there. He's driving his truck. And all of a sudden he realizes his wife is all the way over there. Wife looks at him and says, honey, do you remember when we first started dating? Do you remember that I was always right over here, right next to you? Honey, what changed? The man replied the only thing he could reply. Well, it wasn't me. I've been sitting in the same spot for all of these years. I haven't moved. So if we're not close together, it's because you moved away. And I think sometimes this is the way that we are with God. Sometimes we think God's the one that's moved. Sometimes we think that he's the one that's far away. Sometimes we think that he doesn't see us. And if all of those things are actually true, it's not his fault. He's been driving the truck the whole time. The only reason that we ever feel like God is far away is because we're the one moving over. The only reason we feel like God doesn't see us is because we're the ones that got distant. The Bible says that he is immovable. He never changes. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. It's for some of us, it's time to move back over in that truck. So listen, we're going to finish up here real fast. We're going to finish up, I promise. Because there's three things that I can see in this scripture. And you guys all know, once I get to the third thing, everybody's like, oh, he's almost done. I said, no, be cool. Just be cool. Just hang out. Hang out real fast. I know. I'm going to do 4 points one day, and I'm just going to blow your minds. Today's not that day. All right, so he says, he starts out with this big question, right? How long? How long is it going to be this way? Then he goes to this big request. Look at me. And then he gets this big, we're going to call it today the big switch. Is that what we're calling it? Yeah, I think we're going to call it the big switch. Now listen, in your Bible, when you read Psalm 13, it actually uses the word but. But we've been playing music, and it's playlists, and if I said big but, you guys would start thinking of Sir Mix-a-Lot, and it's not going to be good. So we're going to go with, you guys know it's true. I cannot lie. We're going to go with big switch, and we're going to use the word however, okay? Is that going to be better for us today? We're going to use the word however. So we have this big question that he asks, how long? He has this big request, look at me, and then he makes this big switch. And he says, however. Oh, and this is why I love these Psalms so much. This is why I love David's writings so much. It's because he complains, and he whines, and he moans, and he's irrational, and he doesn't think right. And I'm all like, I check all those boxes. And then it always clicks. Something always clicks in his mind, and he remembers. He remembers all the things that God's done for him. He remembers all the things that God's brought him through. And when he remembers all of those things, that's when he can trust again. When he trusts, then he can rejoice. When he rejoices, you know he always does the end? He sings. This is the cycle of the book of Psalms. When David writes it, he complains, he whines, and then he remembers. Oh yes, I'm going through a really tough time, but I was just a shepherd boy. My dad didn't even remember me. And yet God looked at me and said, you're the king. So I know he's going to get me through this too. You say, oh yeah, man, things are really bad right now, but I do remember that one day when I got that giant, boom, man, it was great. Nobody else could take him out, and he was all like, I come at you with sticks and stones. I'm like, but I come in the name of the Lord my God. Pow! Oh, that was so awesome, and I remember, and then I trust. If he can allow me to conquer that giant, then I can conquer any giant in my life. And listen, I don't know how long these stories are going to be relevant, but to me, this whole message this morning, I didn't care. No offense, but I didn't care who was sitting here this morning, because this was all for me this morning. And I remember, I don't know, and again, I don't know where you were at. I don't know if it hit you the same way it hit me, but it's almost been 2 years exactly since our whole lives changed. Since my whole life changed. And 2 years exactly since we figured out there was this thing called COVID and we started making corona jokes, right? This was 2 years ago. We didn't understand what we were getting into. We didn't understand the seriousness of the situation. And I don't know where you were at in that, but I was awful. I was not good. I was restless, just so restless. And I didn't know what was going to happen. And I'm telling you, I was afraid. I was afraid because I knew that what I did for a living, that I was a man of God and I needed to be out helping people. But if I went out and helped people, what if they got me sick? And then what if my son got sick? I said, I don't know if I should help people. I don't know if I should stay here. I don't know if I should wash my groceries. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I was restless, and I was so restless. And quite frankly, I didn't know if I was going to have a job. None of us did. Honestly, none of us did. We could have thought that we did, but we didn't know how long it was going to last. We didn't know how long everything was going to be shut down. We didn't know anything. So I was restless, and I had this angst, and it was every day. I just felt like the whole world was closing in on me, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do, and I didn't know where to look or what to do. My whole life had been the same. For the last 18 years of my life, it's been the same. I've done the same thing. I knew what I was going to do. I know the seasons of my life, and I know how to prepare for them. And then all of a sudden, they're like, no, you're not doing that stuff anymore. No, that whole life that you knew, it's done now. We're shutting all that stuff down, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. And I don't know if that hits you the same way, but it hit me that way. And in those moments, I remember very clearly sitting at my counter in my kitchen, just not understanding what my future was going to be, just not understanding if we were going to have a future, just not understanding if we were going to get to the other side. And then I would remember. And I remembered I remember that I was just some punk kid sitting in the grass. And God pointed to me and said, that one. And he told me I was the child of the Most High King. I remember that. I remember that I was nothing. And God said, you know what? I got this group of people. I want you to lead them. No, I don't deserve to be up here. I remembered when God plucked me and God said, I'm going to use you. And I said, that's right. You did. You know what? That means if I could trust you back then, that means I could trust you now. And I remember, I remember my son back here. A lot of you guys don't know his story, but maybe one day you will. I remember July 5th, 2009, being in a hospital, a Winter Haven hospital, and he was going to die. There was nothing else. He was going to die. I could see the looks on the doctors' faces and on the nurses' faces. They looked defeated. They didn't know what was going to happen. They told me they were going to stop his heart in hope that it started back. Literal words from doctors. We're going to stop his heart in hope that it starts back. Literal words. I just cried. And I just said, God, don't take my boy from me. God, don't take him from me. God, don't take him from me. And he didn't. And he's here. And I know that God overcame that giant in my life. And I said, if God was faithful then, he will be faithful now. And this is what we go through in life. We have our ups and our downs, but when we're in our downs, what we do is we remember all of the things that God has done for us. We remember all of the times that he has been faithful. And when we do that, then we can trust in him. And when we trust in him, then we can rejoice. And after we rejoice, we sing. That's the way it all works. And so for me, the song that got me through 2020 and most of 2021. The song that got me through is a song that we sang, the third song today. And we're going to sing it again tonight, this morning. The goodness of God. The goodness of God. In the lyrics, the goodness of God, it says, all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. It's so true. I just can't help it. I can't even help but get emotional, but to think of all the things that God's done for me. I can't help but get emotional to think about how faithful God has always been in my life. And I deserved none of it. And I know that if he has been faithful then, he's going to be faithful now. So if you're in one of those down times right now, if you're watching online and you're in one of those down times right now, remember all the things that God has done for you. Remember all of the times that he has come through for you, because he will do it again. All my life he has been faithful. All my life he's been so, so good. I will sing of the goodness of God.